What is going on, everyone, and welcome back to the Crypto Catch Up. Of course, your number one place to catch up on crypto. Well, it's Monday, and you guys know how we like to operate here on the channel. Every Monday, I try to give you a full-fledged breakdown of where this market's at, what Bitcoin's doing from a technical perspective, a fundamental perspective, and what's happening in the news so that you can start your week as prepared as possible. And so that's what we're going to be doing today. So if you do enjoy it, don't forget to smash that like button, and let's catch up on crypto. Now, we're going to break it down today, first and foremost, talking about the fundamentals. Then we'll shift over to the technicals, and then we'll talk about the news. So first and foremost, what's going on in the fundamental scene? Well, what we can see here is that the crypto market is still operating, of course, within the world of greed. We've been talking about this. It wouldn't shock me if we sit in this greed zone for quite a while, and it would take something rather catastrophic, in my opinion, to shake people out of these positions. Now, the reason that I think that is quite simply just because even when Bitcoin's price was just down here around $66,000 or $67,000, we shot up into greed. So people have been greedy before this move even started, and I think to get them out of that greed, we're gonna have to fall below some of those levels. And I mean, it makes sense. You got to think anyone who has ever purchased Bitcoin before this month is now in profit. Everyone. And so because of that, obviously people are greedy. Obviously they're excited. You know what incentivizes greed? Making a little bit of money. Because when you make a little bit, you want to make a lot of it. And so all of these people are, of course, greedy. I don't, again, think there's anything wrong with us being in greed. It's very normal for bull markets to spend a ton of time in greed. I mean, we can go back to the last bull market. You're going to see these moments where you spend a ton of time in greed when the market is pumping, especially like this. Look, right? Whenever we were seeing this happen, when we were really ramping up into the bull market, Bitcoin stayed in greed. I mean, dude, for like months and months and months at a time. So it's no big deal. Again, I only start to get a little bit concerned about this when the volatility picks up. Because when volatility picks up and we go from fear to neutral to greed to neutral to fear to greed, that's when things get a little bit weird. And moments like this is when I'm concerned, not in a moment like this. So overall, looking pretty good. Now, when we do funnel that over into our RSIs, though, what we can see is that things are very, 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 very hot, right? You look at your 12-hour chart, you look at your 24-hour chart. I mean, Bitcoin, Solana, ENA, AVAX, ETH, these things are hot right now. And what I mean by that is they are overbought like crazy. They're fully extended to the upside. They're pushing their boundaries. They're pushing the limits. And I do believe that they're getting a little bit too high for comfort right now. And I will talk about that in the charts a little bit here in a few minutes. But overall, I am definitely a little bit not skeptical, or maybe even like concerned isn't even the word, but I'm just definitely aware that we very, very, very well might see these things slow down at some given point. It doesn't mean it has to crash, but a cool down and a pullback to allow this to slow down seems more and more likely as the days do go by. Now, you remember, it had to be maybe about a week and a half ago or so. What I told you all was that we were seeing Bitcoin and ETH and Solana and all these ones pushing upwards, but we hadn't seen it start to funnel into the altcoins yet. What we talked about in yesterday's video, I think that was the second video of the channel yesterday, but anyway, we were talking about the fact that now we're starting to see that happen. And so what we're starting to see reflected here from our RSI is that not only is it Bitcoin and ETH and Solana and whoever, it's also some of your top 100s, or the majority of your top 100s. And there's some that aren't making it, right? Reeve, SCR, XMR, DIA, Ronin, etc. Like some of those are still around the neutral point, which isn't good, by the way. If your favorite crypto is not pumping, that's not good right now. Or at least doing well, that's not good. But anyway, we're starting to see that liquidity flow down into some of your altcoins as well, which tells me that we are starting to possibly get towards the end of this little micro cycle in which we're in, because usually what that looks like is Bitcoin pumps, altcoins, mid caps, meme coins, pre-sales, private sales, then it repeats. And so considering the fact that we are now starting to see some of your altcoins and mid caps pumping, I definitely think we're, probably halfway through this little tiny cycle we're in. Not the grand cycle, right? The big altcoin season hasn't even really started yet, in my opinion, which I'll talk about in a second. But I do think that this little tiny altcoin season we're in right now is probably getting towards an end, if I had to guess. Okay. So from an RSI perspective, that's what we're looking at. Now, let's kind of transfer that over into how are people trading at this moment. So right now, let's go to the 24 hours, because I actually don't know. Yeah, so what we can see is it's a separate divide, and I would actually say this is a good thing. Equal amount to some degree if people are closing their longs and entering shorts, and closing their shorts and entering their longs. And this is because as we get higher and higher, although people are going to get greedy and bullish, some people are going to start getting skeptical. Like, are we actually going to be able to continue this move to the upside? And because of that, of course, a ton of people are going to start making bets that we're not going to continue higher. Now, overall, what this does is this causes a flow of liquidations on either side, and it's the reason why if you go to your liquidation history, right now we're starting to see liquidations on both sides. It's not just or bears getting liquidated. Bulls are also getting liquidated because we keep having these moments where this market's wicking up and wicking down, liquidating people on both sides. And this is quite frankly just because people are emotional right now. They're not sure what's going on. They're buying and they're selling, they're longing and they're shorting, and everyone's just getting liquidated on either side of this. And I quite frankly don't think that this is going to stop. One piece of news that we did get that I saw was a little bit concerning was that over $2.8 billion are now bet on Bitcoin topping $90,000 as it hits its all-time high. And whenever I see derivatives exchanges start pumping like that and we start to see that amount of volume, it always makes me start to wonder like, we're probably in a spot to where this market's going to start to slow down. It's almost going to have to, because too many people can't be right at once. The lizard people won't let you, right? Too many people can't be right at once. And so seeing pieces of news like this definitely do concern me a little bit, especially when our liquidation maps on, say, the 30-day, here we go, look, there we go. The 30-day looks like this, right? Look how many more liquidations will happen if this market goes back towards 70,000 than if it goes to 90,000. And think about how many liquidations there are at 90,000. And so when I see stuff like this, I definitely do get a little bit concerned, like, all right, this market's probably going to have to slow down sometime soon. So I'm not going to go too crazy. I'm not going to go super high leverage or anything like that. I'm really just going to calm it down. And so from a fundamental perspective, the market looks very hot to me. It looks like it, it's a lot of euphoria out there. And although in the grand scheme of things, I do think crypto will pursue higher, I do think it will go higher in the long term. The short term is definitely getting more and more and more risky. Now, looking at the technicals, and before we do get into the technicals, I will remind you guys, if you really do like the content here on the channel, I do have a private server, which is linked down below. You can get in for as little as $1 a month, but everything else comes at $5 a month. And not only are you going to get my thoughts on random things that I'm thinking about throughout the day. For example, I was talking about altcoin season just this morning and why I don't think we're even in the real altcoin season yet. You can also get daily fundamental analysis reports, daily technical analysis reports. You can join the community, and I just added these 3 different servers: technical analysis course, fundamental analysis course, and leverage trading course, in which I'm creating crash courses for beginners in which you can go in and learn different things about TA, fundamental analysis, and much more. So that is available down there for you. I didn't want to put a super high paywall on it. I don't really like that. I'd rather just give it to you guys, and if the value is there, you'll appreciate it, you'll stick around, and you'll let me know. So again, you can join for as little as $1 a month, so feel free to go check that out. That is down below. Now, moving into the technical analysis side, let's focus in on Bitcoin today, because I do still believe that we're in a Bitcoin season in the grand scheme of things, although we are going to start to see that change sometime soon. Now, Bitcoin's price just made a move that is absolutely outstanding, and I do believe that this could be the beginning of that cool down that I was telling you about, and the fact that we are where we are right now for Bitcoin validates that, all of which will make sense in a second. So what we had been tracking, obviously, with Bitcoin was this descending channel in which its price had been in. I told you all that if we get a breakout out of here, I do think we're going to be able to push to our Fibonacci extension levels. So the best thing that you can do right now is just sit back, wait, and relax. And of course, from there, we did see Bitcoin get that beautiful breakout of that descending channel back on October 28th. It came back down, it back tested it one more time, and now bam, here we are looking pretty good. Now, what I want to kind of tell you all is why I think this level, why did we somehow know that $82.5 thousand was going to be the level that Bitcoin reached, why I think it might be the cool down level now that we have reached it, and why the fact that Bitcoin did reach it is so important. Because as I told you all, whenever we were breaking out of this channel and you were asking me for my price predictions, I said I think an $82,000 Bitcoin makes sense. I think there's a possibility for eventually a $95,000 Bitcoin at this Fibonacci extension, but I think it's most likely that we see a 1.272 Fib extension right around $82,000, which is exactly where we are right now. So first of all, congratulations to those of you who did get in and did, close down some of those trades. I saw your messages over on my Twitter earlier today. Congratulations to those of you who did lock down those trades here. Big ups to you. I'm very happy for you, and I'm glad I was able to help to whatever degree. And so because of that, let's talk about why, of course, again, we knew that this was a possibility and why this could be the cool down zone now. Well, what we have been tracking and what we've always tracked here on the channel are your Fibonacci's. And put simply, your Fibonacci's are key zones of resistance and support that, based off of the history and the data that we have in crypto and stocks and other asset classes, they can typically be considered the most important zones that you'll run into or that you will retrace to. Now, whenever you're looking at your Fibonacci's here on something like Bitcoin, what you would do is you would go in, let me just draw it for you. You would take your Fibonacci tool and you would draw in from your high, which is right here, okay, all the way down to your low, which is right here. Now, what I focus on are just 4 different Fibonacci levels: the 786, the 618, the 1272, and the 1618. These are the levels that I've come to realize are extremely important. The other ones are important, but they're not nearly as important as these ones. And what you can start to see is that it paints a picture once you start to really zoom out. So if you would have drawn on your Fibonacci's right after we put in this low, you would have clearly identified the 618 to 786 zone right here. Now the 618 to 786 zone is called a retracement zone, quite simply because we went from here to here, and now we're retracing this move by visiting upwards, running into this retracement zone. It's basically just a measurement of throughout this move to the downside while we're going back up through it, at what point we should run into some resistance. Now, the 618 to 786 Fibonacci zone is extremely important. It is always going to try to reject your price back to the downside like it did on multiple occasions here. But once you're finally capable of clearing this resistance zone, it opens up the door for you to start doing what's called extending, which means you're breaking through that recent high, and you're going up to your Fibonacci extensions, which are predictive levels or layers or zones or ranges that are based off, again, history. And so from there, what we can then do is we can look at our 1.272 or our 1.618 and say these are going to be your breakout targets now that we have cleared this 618 to 786 zone. That's as simple as I possibly can make it. So let me know if that makes sense down below. Now, with that in mind, again, what you can see is that our 1.272 Fibonacci extension or predictive zone, the level in which your Fibonacci's predict the price will go up to, a predictive zone, is at 82,644, exactly where we reached up to before seeing this little tiny pullback that we're seeing right now. And so since Bitcoin was fully capable of reaching this zone and fully capable of reaching that breakout target, I do think that since the next one is so far away, you have to be aware of the fact that some sort of pullback could happen now, right? We hit the breakout target, we might start cooling down off of it. If you look at something like your RSI, this thing is extremely extended to the top side. You look at your 4-hour RSI, we are holding up well, but we are starting to get early signs of bearish divergence in the sense that we are putting in lower highs here and higher highs there. When you do look at something like your daily Bollinger Bands, let me see if I can pull that down. You look at something like your daily Bollinger Bands, we're still sitting outside of those Bollinger Bands, and we almost never maintain outside of them. You'll almost always retrace back down into them. And so because of that, I'm definitely, again, from a technical perspective as well, being very, very cautious of what we're seeing in this market right now. We definitely could see some sort of pullback or cool down, and I want you to just, of course, know that although it's not guaranteed and this market might continue higher, the higher it gets, the more risky it gets. That's why I'm not doing any huge leverage trading or anything like that right now. I'm just more simply sitting back and enjoying my profits and taking some profits off the top as we do continue upwards. Now, if you guys do want to do some trading yourself, you can check out that Margex link down in the description below. Guys, when you do sign up with Margex, you're not going to need to KYC, meaning you don't need to provide them your personal information. You're not even going to need to use a VPN. You can literally just sign up and start trading, and they're going to give you up to $10,000 in bonuses and rewards with my link down below. That's an absolutely ridiculous deal. This is where I do probably about 70% of my trading at this given point. So feel free to go check that out down there again and let me know what you think. But this is one of the best platforms for trading. A ton of different collateral options that make your life super easy. I have tens of thousands of dollars on here just because I do consistently trade here so much. So feel free to go check that out down below if you're interested. Now, moving along, okay, now that we have a good catch up on what's going on with the TA, Bitcoin just hit a breakout target, probably going to cool down a little bit sometime soon. Fundamentals are looking a little bit overheated to me. Let's talk about the news, because that paints a whole different picture. And the news is the reason why, even in the short term and the midterm, knowing that a cool down, pullback, whatever might be on the way, I just don't care, because the news that we keep getting about what's happening in the macro, the long term, is just too damn good. Now, baby, Michael Saylor is back. MicroStrategy just bought another 27,000 Bitcoin for $2 billion. Now, some people were getting a little bit nervous, right? Some people were getting a little bit skeptical. They were saying, well, Michael Saylor hasn't been buying. He hasn't bought, I think it was a couple weeks, maybe even a couple months at one given point, where he wasn't doing, MicroStrategy just wasn't doing any buying. And as a result of that, people were starting to speculate, well, does he still think it can go up higher from here? Does he still think that there's a long-term future? All of these things. Now, obviously, if you're a Bitcoin maxi, you know he does, right? Like, I'm not a Bitcoin maxi, but I've been in the space long enough to know that you can't start questioning people because they stop buying for a few weeks. It's ridiculous. And with this, though, it further solidifies my thought in the sense that, oh, he still thinks that it can go even higher from here. Now, what's interesting about this is that, at some point I do think he is going to stop buying, but it doesn't seem to be right now, because right now these people have MicroStrategy. Their holdings just surpassed $20 billion, and they are now $10 billion in profits. And so because of that, obviously someone who's $10 billion in profit may easily start to think, well, it's probably not a good idea to buy anymore right now. But that's not how Michael Saylor thinks. Michael Saylor came out and he said, you know what, I'm gonna take 20% of what we made well, you get it. He's not literally selling, taking the profits and reinvesting it, but you get the point. But I'm going to take 20% of them that we made and throw that right back in. I'm going to accumulate more, even though this thing is at an all-time high, because Michael Saylor has a history of not caring, quite frankly, if it's at an all-time high or if it's at an all-time low. MicroStrategy is going to buy one way or another, and it is good to see them back and buying, because at the end of the day, this is probably the most bullish person we'll ever see in the world of crypto. And so because of that, obviously we do want to continue to see their support, especially if we want to see this market continue upwards, right? We're in a spot right now where there's not a ton of FUD. There is a lot of excitement, and we want to just let that build up a little bit. Sure, there's going to be pullbacks and cooldowns in the short term, but from a macro sense, we want to see these leaders in the industry still bullish, not exiting yet, not leaving yet, because they are the ones who are going to allow this excitement and hype to build and build and build to get us towards the levels that we want to go to. This is the reason why we are starting to see Google trends trending upwards. If we do something like, Bitcoin, for example, you can see, let's do Bitcoin and then let's go out to the last 5 years, right? Like, this is the reason why we are starting to see this uptick happening. It's things like this, and Michael Saylor and Donald Trump and RFK, all of them that are contributing to retail coming back, and we want to see that continue. So I think this is fantastic news. I'm very happy to see them back in the mix, and I am looking forward to see what type of pressure they do put on the market to continue to absorb some of that supply. And so with that in mind, guys, that is about it for today's catch up. I hope you guys did enjoy. I know there was a lot of information, but it's like, it's how we'd like to start Monday off. Let's just get a full understanding, a full scope of this market, and let's see what's going on. And don't forget, if you do want to join the private community for as little as $1, you can check that out down in the description below. You can go do some trading over on Margex through my affiliate link if you want up to $10,000. And while you are down there, don't forget to subscribe if you did enjoy. But thank you all so much for joining in today, and I can't wait to see you all next time. Peace out, everybody.